You're welcome back from that short commercial break, and of course, thank you for sticking with us. Now, the Uganda-South Sudan trade relations. Today, we discuss how the outcomes of discussion will be implemented, together with Fred Makubia on tonight's episode of Coffee Court.
Well, it is a pleasure and thank you for joining us. This is the Coffee Court, where we ask the critical questions and fundamentally questions that matter. And this time around, we'll be digesting matters of summits that Uganda as a country has been signing, with quite a number of them. And definitely the most recent is the summit between South Africa and Uganda. A number of agreements have been signed. What do these mean? This time's our discussion. Joining me is Mr. Ayebale Kenneth. He is the chairperson of the clearing and forwarding industry, but he also represents the clearing and forwarding industry on the board of the Private Sector Foundation, Uganda. Mr. Ayebale, my pleasure, and thank you for finding us time.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, viewers.
Just to bring us to speed, what is your role in the Private Sector Foundation as a board member?
I'm the chairperson of the logistics and transport sector on the board of Private Sector Foundation in Uganda.
So what do you do, or what does the association actually do?
Private sector is a foundation that represents all private sector businesses, that is non-government businesses in Uganda. We play roles of advocacy for favorable conditions of trade, all doing business in Uganda.
So we discussed the significance of such summits to Uganda. First and foremost, why would the country enter into such bilateral and important summits like these?
Well, a summit, basically, if you look at the definition of a summit is where heads of states, all heads of companies, all the industries meet so that they can maintain diplomatic relations, business relations, all that category of relations that they need to maintain to have a continuous relationship moving. Now, with business summits like the summit that is in South Africa right now, it is both a diplomatic summit and a business summit, where you have private sector players in that summit. You're exhibiting goods from the private sector. You're also maintaining the diplomatic relations between the two governments of South Africa and the government of Uganda. So basically, the whole point of the summit is to first of all maintain the relationships and also show what they have that is better than us, and that's showing them what we have, and also helping them to understand, to have a brief on Uganda, and them helping us to have a brief in South Africa.
Okay. And just for the public consumption, this is not the first summit that Uganda has entered into. There are several others and many more still coming on board. Just to be specific, South Africa and Uganda. Why South Africa in particular?
You see, after COVID, you realize that most countries are into summits. They want to trade what they have. A country cannot be an independent like an island. So every country is looking at exhibiting what they can do, so that they can share what they have and get what they do not have. Now, the South African Business Summit. South Africa is a country that is more developed than us,
Sure.
but has a lot that needs from us. We also have a lot we need from them. It's a developing country, but it's not a developed country, it's a developing country, but at a level where Uganda is not.
So are you saying South Africa is more developed than?
Yeah, South Africa is more developed definitely than Uganda. If you look at their GDP and look at our GDP, South Africa is high, most especially because of their minerals. Because for them they have minerals, and they are already getting out minerals from the ground, which we are still low. So South Africa is basically better than us a bit. However, if you look at how we are relating, we have things like food that they don't have, mostly in terms of fruits, because we are an agricultural country. 34% of our activities here, of our GDP's contribution is from agriculture.
So is South
We have yes, so is South Africa, but there are things they don't have that we have. Because we have Roland fruits that they have that we don't have. We also have highland fruits they have that we don't have. I was also looking at what they have in terms of cocoa. South Africa has less cocoa than we have. The coffee we have here, we can export still to South Africa. So there are a number of things we can exchange with South Africa that they can export and we can import from them.
So who benefits more than the other if we are to take a case study of South Africa and Uganda?
The question of benefit is normally is a two-way. One, from South Africa we get investors. From South Africa we get investors, so also you can get imports in minerals and all that, imports in machinery. South Africa has a number of industries. Now in Uganda we take still foodstuffs like nuts, cashew nuts, G-nuts, groundnuts. There are a number of things we can take from here. Crafts, the craft industry here is growing, you can take crafts. So a number of things that we can export to them. However, when you talk about benefit, we both benefit. I cannot say one benefits more than the other. It depends on how lucrative we are.
You know we have what we call parasitic relationship. One is benefiting from the other, causing no harm, or it can be symbiotic that both of you are benefiting from
both
the other.
of us will be benefiting, because if you look at the education sector in South Africa, it is developed. If we have our universities here partnering, having exchange programs with South Africa has a developed education system than us. So you'll find we are benefiting still in the service sector for the education system, through the education sector.
So, but in this case, we are looking at, because it's been a business summit, that is our area of concentration.
Education is business. We have a number of universities that are private here. Are they not in business? We have a number of industries here that are working on education materials. Are they not in business? So at the end of the day, you'll find that even the services are into the industry.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a business, basically it's a business forum where all of us must benefit. South Africa has where it is better than us, we have where we are better than.
So what are those areas where you think they are better than us as a country?
Mostly minerals, the education, they're better than us. Industrialization, South Africa is better than us.
So who needs more than the other?
Both of us need each other. I can't say this needs more than the other, because it depends on in terms of what. We have a lot of food we can export to South Africa. Good enough with Uganda, our climate is good. We have 2 seasons and our production for food is good. South Africa imports a lot of eggs. South Africa imports a lot of milk, dairy products, which we have here. We are in excess of 1.8 million liters of milk. So all these markets that we are visiting as summits are markets that are critical in importing our food, like maize and all that. So South Africa is not the only country we are aiming at, but a number of summits have been held in Congo, in Sudan, in Eritrea. The Eritreans were here, Turkey was here, we also went to Turkey. So a number of summits have been held. So looking at the basic benefit of these summits, it is partnerships between these countries, both diplomatically and business-wise.
The private sector foundation has been very fundamental and central in this summit. And when I talk about the private sector foundation, I'm talking about the members that subscribe to the Apex body. And so how do these members benefit, especially from such summits, like the one of South Africa and Uganda?
Diplomatic relations between South Africa and Uganda open a way to business. For example, they are now discussing on work permits and visas, entry visas. We've been having a problem of an entry visa. You can look for a South African visa for over a month. Why? Passports have to be taken somewhere, not in Uganda, to get a visa. And then the visas expire very fast. So they are looking at a way to open doors. The moment you can move, then you can trade. So private sector members will now look at opportunities in South Africa. What opportunities are there? What can we sell there and what can be sold here? That's mostly one of the things that we are looking at as private sector. Because with us, we look at business. What businesses can we do in South Africa? What businesses can South Africans do in Uganda? What partnerships can we have with South Africans, mostly in industrialization, where they can invest or where we can invest.
One would be asking, why not concentrate on home summits, relationship, than getting to broader places like South Africa? Why can't we concentrate on formalizing businesses here in Uganda than getting that far?
Uganda is limited. The play, if I can call it the ground that where we play in business here is limited. So in South Africa, all in Congo, all elsewhere, we are looking at expanding markets.
Okay.
If you look at the population of South Africa and look at the population of Uganda, we are adding on and expanding on markets. So we have excess in foods here. I've been telling you that we have 1.8 million liters excess of milk. So if South Africa is importing dairy products in 2022, you look at about 183 million worth milk products. So if we have excess here, this milk will be going to South Africa. So we're looking at expanding markets, basically. That is why one of the uses of summits. So we are expanding, broadening the markets that we trade with. Yeah.
So looking at it from the clearing and forwarding perspective, what is its implication, especially to the sector that you proudly lead?
Every time we talk about exports and imports, we're talking about clearing and forwarding industry.
I thought it's about
and
cargo.
logistics.
It's just about cargo.
No. Of course, when you talk about trade, you're moving cargo in and out. So it's clearing. When you're moving cargo in and out, it's transport. So transport and logistics, freight forwarding, clearing and forwarding, all these are in between trade. So in fact, the backbone of trade is the logistics industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does this have any lessons to put before us as members that subscribe to the East African community?
Yes, one of the lessons of before I even look at the lessons, I want you to look at Africa coming as one, borderless. So if South Africa has a route whereby we are trading with them directly, they are not only expanding their market to Uganda alone, they are coming to East Africa as a whole. If you look at the geographical position of Uganda, we act as a central logistics hub for most of the countries. We are bordering Rwanda, we are bordering Congo, we are bordering South Sudan, Kenya and Tanzania. So we are a central distribution hub. So South Africa benefits a large market too when they deal with Uganda. By dealing with Uganda, you're dealing with Congo, you're dealing with Rwanda, you're dealing with Sudan, South Sudan, and Kenya and Tanzania, looking at our geographical position. So East Africa, as a bloc, is expanding its market to an entry of South Africa into the East African community, an entry into the East African trade. If we deal with East Africa, with South Africa, South Africa is dealing with the whole of East Africa.
A number of agreements have been reached, especially between the two heads of state, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and Ramaphosa, actually, of South Africa. What do these ties as well mean?
The ties open, they are an opening entry to trade, they are an opening entry to diplomatic relations that we had with South Africa. Of course, South Africa and Uganda have a long history. If you remember, in the apartheid time, South Africa was training its soldiers here. There are a number of things we've been exchanging with South Africa, but strengthening these ties helps us to also more go with trade and business. Exports and imports, if you look at exports and imports from South Africa, there are not many, but opening our trade ties, our diplomatic ties and trade ties, helps us with improving our markets with South Africa.
Okay, definitely the discussion regarding such relationship is one of those critical issues that, as a business channel, we never and never forget to discuss. And so broadly, like I did say, the private sector has been very, very fundamental. And I know government as well has a key role to play in this, to make sure that the relationship. What is the anticipation that after a while, Uganda will benefit from this and that?
We look at businesses increasing, mostly partnerships with South Africa. We look at South Africans coming to invest in Uganda, mostly in the industrialization sector, transport sector, and service sector, building hotels and all that. We also look at Ugandans exporting much more of our products here to South Africa. Then there are other sectors like the tourism sector. We look at Uganda, the South Africans visiting Uganda, and Ugandans visiting South Africa, most especially when in terms of when visas are, the issue of visas is solved. So the movement will be a bit smooth.
And this reminds me about issues of Vision 2040. Do such summits have any impact regarding to maybe Uganda's attainment for issues like Vision 2040?
If you look at the National Development Plan, NDP3, one of the key factors that is hinted on is expanding markets. So business summits are into expanding markets. So creating these trade ties, these diplomatic ties, is expanding markets. Creating these relationships with different countries helps us to expand the markets. And therefore, the development of these markets will help us to export more and also help us to have our tax bill controlled, because we now have a tax bill where our imports are more than our exports. And to me, it is a plus when we look at African countries more than even exporting to the West, because the conditions that we'll have in South Africa are not many. For example, one of the things that is being looked at is the standards. South Africa is looking at if they standardize goods in Uganda, they shouldn't again be standardized in South Africa. So we should harmonize our standards. The Uganda National Bureau of Standards and maybe a Bureau of Standards in South Africa, harmonizing their standards. That is one of the discussions that is being looked at.
We have a history that we've signed many of these summits, but some have not yielded any results. What could be the contributing factor?
One of the biggest challenges is having no follow-up action plan. We tend to go to these countries, but we never look at what is our niche in these countries. For example, when we went to Congo, by now we should be exporting a lot of food. Kinshasa alone has a population of 20 million people. One city, 20 million people. That means these people are eating, these people are using a lot of things. So what are we exporting there? What has failed us? The cost of logistics to Congo is still high. Same as the cost of logistics to South Africa, it is high. These relations that we are creating should be bringing in, should moderate between the transport and the logistics costs between South Africa and Uganda. And then what follows would be the trade.
And what needs to be done to make sure that whatever that has been put on paper becomes a reality?
Uganda needs to draw an action plan of what do we need in South Africa, what can we do in South Africa. Same as in all the countries that we've done summits in. We now need to start looking at action plans. What can we benefit? How do we start? How do our members start? How does the private sector start? The education, all sectors need to be looked at on how we can exchange and benefit from each other.
And last but not least, which other countries do you think we need to come to such agreements like these?
A number of them, most of the Asian countries. You see, when I talk about our niche being agriculture here, most of the Asian countries are arid countries. In most cases, these will need food. So to me, the target would be countries whereby we know that they are not agricultural countries and can import from us a lot of what we have. 24% of our contribution to the GDP is agriculture. Most of the employment is in agriculture. So I would look at countries that are arid. Most of the Asian countries need us more than we need them, mostly when it comes in terms of food.
Would that be your parting shots? Would that be your final remark, Mr. Ayuma?
Yes, my final remarks are that Uganda needs to do more of the summits with countries where we look at benefits, most especially in trade. Countries like Asian countries where they need food, countries like the Asian and Arab countries, most of these countries need food, need what we have most, need what we have in excess. And then internally, we need to organize our supply chain. To realize our supply chain, we are losing about 30% of all our production in agriculture because of lack of an organized internal supply chain. So if we organize this supply chain, then it grows our export capacity. And after growing our export capacity, then we can say we have what to provide to these countries.
Mr. Ibali, thank you for finding time and speaking to us, especially on matters regarding South Africa and Uganda as a country. Definitely the discussion can continue on our social media platform. This is the Coffee Court, and this is where we ask those critical questions, and especially questions that matter. My name is Fred Makubuya.
That was Fred Makubia there with Ayebale, the clearing and forwarding officer. They are great conversations. Thank you for sticking with us. Now, let's move on with business today. According to the National Small Business Survey of Uganda, internet usage is lowest among micro-sized businesses at 31%, with Uganda's internet being one of the most expensive in Africa. This is believed to be the key reason for extremely low profits among women-led enterprises compared to male counterparts. Resolution now remains in broad technology and digital solutions. In 2018, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development reported that fewer women, about 327 million, than men have a smartphone and can access mobile internet. As of last year's data, about 13 million Ugandans had access to the internet. Lately, constraint due to digital resource scarcity, financial incapacity, and cyber insecurity, plus social culture norms, are understood to limit technological inclusion among many female-owned enterprises.
Written in the digital space. And it's a good platform for us to engage in. It's a platform that will create awareness for our businesses. It is a platform that will increase the sources of our incomes. But we are challenged in the lack of knowledge, and has been said that people shall die for lack of knowledge. We are failing to progress. We are failing to act.
As of this year, about 580 million Africans access the market. Uganda still sits just outside the top 10 users, providing one of the most costly internet services. Women entrepreneurship still offers challenges beyond internet costs to technological literacy, inefficiencies, for instance, tax transactions with URA's IFRIS.
But along the way, things were not working out. Most of the people that were buying are my people in my network, because once somebody buys online, you get a notification on your email. I would check them throughout. But then these are my people. What could be the challenge? How about the other outside market is not buying from me? So I had to find out. I contacted them as well, and they told me, you need to do what you call boosting. You need to pay. They boost your product to trade with them. So the issue of VAT registration, I was left to the wall. I had to go and visit URA. I explained to them, I do not reach the capacity, the threshold of 150 million. But I had to explain to them, I'm not trading.
However, I would want to note that it is not as it used to be. It was even much higher than that some years ago. It has gone down. Now, NITA, as per se, does not provide internet directly to the private sector. We left that space to the service providers, the telecos. What NITA is doing is providing that internet to government. However, as you know, once you reduce the monopoly, usually the prices go down. Now, when NITA came into play and we started giving internet to government agencies, the cost of internet started going down. And we believe in the next probably 5 years, as we connect more government entities, the price will eventually.
In the face of taxation, growth and investment, operations of enterprises has been reckoned to reflect a clear understanding with stakeholders such as Uganda Revenue Authority and other government authorities.
And you don't agree with that decision of the commissioner, osobola okusaba objection, ne baddamu ne reviewing no later defense oba ekiraga nti bino nze bino bye byange mu ebyammwe simanyi ko sinzidde kati ne baddira decision esobola kubeera reviewed.
$250 million mu Ministry of Gender. Manyi kye batandikiddeko kuzimba kizimbe. So
World Bank donated $250 million, but they have already used that money for infrastructure. So fight for yourself, go and ask for that money, even if they refuse.
kati lwaki temugendayo ne bazibamma ne mudda wano nti bazikoze batya naye mutya
structure, but also trying to reduce the cost of internet. One of the things that we've often asked for is a removal of the tax on internet as a way to make it more accessible for the people, but also the need for continued sensitization by the different government entities that are championing digitalization, looking at the role of Uganda Registration Services Bureau, Uganda Revenue.
Women play an important role in society as a whole, and especially in small businesses, yet they often have less access to technology and internet compared to boys and men. Ronnah, Nahabwe, Smart 24 TV, Business Today. That report will lead us to the end of business today. Thank you for the pleasure of your time. My name is Ronnah Nahabwe with Winnie and Nakawuki on the sign language interpretation. I would like to implore you to watch on our YouTube channel at Smart 24 TV Live to be up to speed with the rest of the stories in case you missed any of these. And follow us on our social media platforms at Smart 24 TV on Twitter, Facebook, and the like. Have a lovely weekend.